My name is Dorothy Washington, and at 68 years old, I thought I knew exactly what my children were made of. I was wrong. It took a family dinner and a $50 million Powerball ticket to show me who they really were, and who they weren't. I've lived in the same modest two-bedroom house in Detroit's East Side for 43 years. The neighborhood has seen better days, but it's home. The house where I raised 3 children as a single mother after their father decided his freedom was worth more than his family. The house where I worked double shifts at the Ford factory during the day and cleaned office buildings at night to keep food on our table and clothes on their backs. Tonight was supposed to be special. My son Marcus, now 45 and a successful investment banker in downtown Detroit, had suggested we all gather for Sunday dinner like the old days. My daughter Patricia, 42 and a real estate attorney, had driven over from her suburban Bloomfield Hills mansion. My youngest, Jerome, 38, and working as a hospital administrator, came with his wife, Vanessa, and their 3 children. But it was my granddaughter Keisha, Patricia's 23-year-old daughter, who made my heart sing when she walked through my front door. Fresh out of Wayne State University with her nursing degree, she still had that same bright smile that had lit up my world since she was born. Unlike her mother, Keisha never seemed embarrassed by my house, my neighborhood, or my 8th grade education. "Grandma Dorothy!" she called out, wrapping me in one of those tight hugs that reminded me why I'd worked so hard all those years. "Something smells amazing in here. Please tell me you made your famous mac and cheese." I laughed, feeling more joy in that moment than I'd felt in months. "Of course I did, baby girl. And your favorite cornbread, too." The dining room table was set with my best dishes, the ones I'd bought piece by piece from Kmart over the years, nothing fancy but clean and proper. I'd spent all day cooking: fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, and sweet potato pie. The same meals that had sustained us through lean times, the same recipes my own grandmother had taught me in rural Alabama before I moved north looking for better opportunities. As my family gathered around the table, I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. Not the good kind from seeing everyone together, but something else. Something that had been getting worse over the past few weeks. The doctor at the community clinic had been running tests, asking questions, looking concerned. But I hadn't told anyone yet. Tonight wasn't about my health problems, or so I thought. Don't forget to let me know where you're watching this story from, and if you're enjoying it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories. What happened next will shock you. As we passed dishes around the table, I noticed the familiar pattern beginning. Marcus kept checking his phone, barely looking up from his screen. Patricia made subtle comments about the neighborhood, how I should really consider moving somewhere safer and more appropriate for a woman my age. Jerome's wife, Vanessa, kept wiping down her children's hands with sanitizing wipes, as if my house was contaminated. "Mama," Patricia said, cutting into her chicken with surgical precision, "we've been talking, and we really think it's time you considered assisted living. There are some lovely facilities in Sterling Heights, much nicer than this area." I felt my jaw tighten. Assisted living? Child? I'm 68, not 98. I can take care of myself just fine. "But Mama," Marcus chimed in without looking up from his phone, "you're getting older. What if something happens? What if you fall? This neighborhood isn't what it used to be." Keisha looked up from her plate, frowning. "What's wrong with Grandma's neighborhood? She's lived here longer than I've been alive. This is her home." "Keisha, you don't understand," her mother Patricia said with that condescending tone she'd perfected in law school. "It's about safety and practicality. Mama never got the education to make proper financial decisions. We need to help her before it's too late." The comment hit me like a slap. Never got the education. As if my 8th grade education somehow made me stupid. As if working 3 jobs to put them through college meant nothing. As if the wisdom earned through 40 years of hard work and sacrifice was worthless because I didn't have a degree on the wall. "I've been managing my finances just fine for decades," I said quietly. but I could feel anger building in my chest alongside that worrying tightness. "Have you, though?" Jerome asked, finally joining the conversation. "Mama, you're living paycheck to paycheck on Social Security. You can't afford to maintain this house properly. Look at that water stain on the ceiling, the way the front porch sags. It's not sustainable." That's when the chest pain hit me harder than it had all week. Sharp, radiating pain that took my breath away. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to breathe, trying not to alarm anyone, but the room started spinning slightly. "I don't feel well," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The response from my children was telling. Marcus glanced up from his phone for exactly 2 seconds before returning to his screen. "You probably just ate too fast, Mama. Take some Tums," Patricia continued cutting her chicken. "It's probably just stress, which is exactly why we're having this conversation about assisted living. You need less stress in your life." Jerome kept talking to his wife about their vacation plans to Cancun, as if I hadn't spoken at all. But Keisha was on her feet instantly, her nursing training kicking in. "Grandma, what kind of pain? Where exactly? Can you describe it to me?" The contrast was stark and heartbreaking. My children, the ones I'd sacrificed everything for, couldn't be bothered to look up from their phones and conversations. But my granddaughter was already taking my pulse, looking into my eyes with genuine concern. What happened next would reveal the true character of my family. "The pain is in my chest," I whispered to Keisha, grateful for her gentle touch as she checked my pulse. "It's been happening more often lately. Sharp, like someone squeezing my heart." Keisha's expression grew serious as she felt my rapid, irregular heartbeat. "Grandma, this doesn't sound like indigestion. When did these episodes start? How long do they last?" "About 3 weeks now," I admitted, finally sharing what I'd been keeping to myself. "Sometimes just a minute or 2, but they're getting stronger." "Mom." "Dad, Uncle Jerome," Keisha called out urgently. "I think Grandma needs to go to the hospital. Her pulse is irregular and she's having chest pain." Marcus finally looked up from his phone, but with annoyance rather than concern. "Keisha, you just graduated nursing school. You're not a doctor. Mama's probably just having indigestion from eating too much fried food." "I'm a registered nurse now," Keisha said firmly, "and I know the signs of cardiac distress. Grandma needs medical attention immediately." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Mama's always been dramatic about her health. Remember when she thought she was having a stroke last year? It was just a headache." I stared at my daughter in shock. That headache had been a hypertensive crisis that required a 3-day hospital stay, but apparently Patricia had rewritten that history to fit her narrative of me being a hypochondriac. "I can drive myself to the clinic tomorrow," I said, not wanting to cause a scene, but the pain was intensifying. "No, Grandma," Keisha said with the authority of a medical professional. "You need to go now. I'm calling an ambulance." "Don't you dare!" Patricia snapped. "Do you know how much an ambulance costs? If she really needs to go, I can drive her to the emergency room." But Patricia made no move to get up from the table. She continued eating as if her mother wasn't experiencing a medical emergency. Jerome's wife, Vanessa, finally spoke up. "Well, we can't go anywhere. The kids need to be home for school tomorrow, and we have that early meeting." "I'll take her," Keisha announced, already helping me to my feet. "My car is right outside." "Keisha, sit down and finish your dinner," her mother ordered. "You're overreacting. Mama's fine." That's when something inside me broke. Not just physically, but emotionally. Here I was, potentially having a heart attack, and my children, the ones I'd worked myself to the bone to raise, couldn't be bothered to show basic human concern. But my granddaughter, barely starting her career, was willing to drop everything to help me. "I raised you better than this," I said, looking at each of my children. "I worked 3 jobs so you could go to college, so you could have opportunities. I never had, and this is how you treat me when I need help?" Marcus shrugged. "Mama, you're being dramatic. You've been to the doctor dozens of times over the years for nothing." "Those weren't nothing," I said, my voice growing stronger despite the pain. I had pneumonia twice, a mini stroke, and diabetes. Complications. But you wouldn't know because none of you ever asked for details. As Keisha helped me toward the door, I realized that tonight had revealed something important about my family. Something that would change everything. The drive to Detroit Receiving Hospital was a blur of pain and revelation. Keisha drove with one hand while holding mine with the other, constantly checking on me while navigating the evening traffic with the skill of someone who'd grown up in the city. "Grandma, tell me about these episodes," she said, her voice professional but caring. "Have you been taking your blood pressure medication regularly?" "Every day," I assured her. "But the doctor at the clinic has been running tests, said something about my heart rhythm being irregular." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" she asked gently. I looked out the window at the familiar streets of my neighborhood. The corner store where I'd bought milk and bread for 40 years, the church where I'd raised my children in faith, the elementary school where they'd all started, their educations. Because I knew this would happen. They'd use it as another reason why I can't take care of myself. Keisha squeezed my hand. "Grandma, you're one of the strongest people I know. You raised 3 successful children as a single mother while working multiple jobs. You put them all through college. You've survived everything life threw at you. Don't let them make you feel weak." At the hospital, Keisha took charge with the confidence of a healthcare professional. While I was being examined, she stayed by my side, translating medical terminology and asking the right questions. The emergency room doctor, a young black woman about Keisha's age, confirmed what my granddaughter had suspected. "Mrs. Washington, you're experiencing atrial fibrillation," Dr. Johnson explained. "Your heart is beating irregularly, which can be serious if left untreated. We need to run some tests and likely start you on medication to regulate your heart rhythm." As they ran an EKG and drew blood for tests, I thought about my children back at my house, probably finishing their dinner, and continuing their conversation about putting me in assisted living. None of them had called to check on me. None of them had followed us to the hospital. "Where's the rest of your family?" Dr. Johnson asked, noticing it was just Keisha and me. "This is my family," I said, looking at my granddaughter with pride. "The only family that matters." 3 hours later, after tests and medication adjustments, we were finally heading home. But as Keisha drove through the quiet streets, I made a decision that had been building all evening. "Keisha, baby, I need to tell you something," I said. "Something that's going to change everything." She glanced at me with concern. "What is it, Grandma?" I reached into my purse and pulled out the lottery ticket I'd been carrying around for 3 days, the one I'd bought at the corner store on a whim after getting my Social Security check. The one I'd checked online that morning and nearly fainted when I saw the numbers. "Last Wednesday, I won the Powerball," I said quietly. $50 million. Keisha nearly swerved off the road. "Grandma, what did you just say?" "I won $50 million. I haven't told anyone. I've been trying to figure out what to do, how to handle it. But tonight showed me exactly what I needed to know about my children." The silence in the car was profound as the magnitude of this revelation sank in. "Grandma," Keisha whispered, "are you serious?" "Dead serious." "And after tonight, after seeing who cared enough to help me when I needed it most, I know exactly what I'm going to do with that money." If you're enjoying this shocking story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales. The next revelation will leave you speechless. The next morning, I called my lawyer, not Patricia, despite her law degree, but Mrs. Chen from the neighborhood legal aid clinic who'd helped me with my will years ago. She was honest, affordable, and treated me with respect regardless of my education level. "Mrs. Washington," she said over the phone, "I need to verify this with the Lottery Commission, but if what you're telling me is true, this is life-changing money. Have you thought about how you want to handle it?" "I've been thinking about nothing else since Saturday morning when I checked those numbers," I replied. and last night confirmed everything I needed to know. By noon, Mrs. Chen had confirmed the ticket's authenticity, and we'd scheduled a meeting for the following day to discuss my options. I decided to claim the lump sum, about 30 million, after taxes, rather than annual payments. At 68, with a heart condition, I wanted to see exactly what I could accomplish with this money while I was still able. That afternoon, my children began their campaign in earnest. Patricia called first. "Mama, I've been thinking about last night," she said, her voice saccharine sweet. "Maybe I was too harsh about the assisted living idea. But you have to admit, your health scare proves you need more support." Keisha handled it just fine, I replied. Better than fine, actually. She probably saved my life. "Well, yes, but Keisha is young and inexperienced. You need mature guidance. Jerome and I have been discussing it, and we think you should come stay with one of us until you're feeling better." Interesting how my health had suddenly become their priority. Marcus called an hour later with a similar theme. "Mama, I feel terrible. About last night. I was distracted by work. You know how demanding my job is. But I want to make it up to you. Maybe I could help you look at your finances, help you make some investments." "My finances are just fine, son. Come on, Mama. Social Security doesn't go very far these days. Let me help you plan for the future. I could even co-sign on a nice apartment in a better neighborhood." Co-sign, meaning he'd have control over where I lived. Jerome's approach was different but equally transparent. He showed up at my door that evening with flowers and a concerned expression. "Mama, Vanessa feels terrible about last night. We were stressed about work, but that's no excuse. We want to help take care of you. Maybe you could move in with us. We have that nice guest suite, and you'd be around the grandkids more." The same grandkids his wife had been sanitizing constantly to protect them from my contaminated house. "That's kind of you, Jerome, but I'm comfortable here." "But Mama, be realistic. You're on a fixed income, your health is declining, and this neighborhood keeps getting worse. Let us help you make better decisions." There it was again, the assumption that my lack of formal education meant I couldn't make better decisions. What my children didn't know was that while they were plotting to take control of my life, I was making the biggest decision of theirs. That night, Keisha came by to check on me, bringing groceries and her blood pressure cuff. "How are you feeling, Grandma? Any more chest pain today?" "Physically, I'm better. Emotionally," I shook my head. "Your mother and uncles have been calling all day, suddenly very concerned about my welfare." Keisha's expression darkened. "Let me guess. Now they want to help manage your money and your living situation." "Exactly. Funny how a little medical scare makes them so interested in my well-being." We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd helped all of them with homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays and graduations, where I'd comforted them through heartbreaks and disappointments. "Keisha, what I told you last night about the lottery, I need you to understand what this means. $50 million means I never have to worry about money again," I continued. "But more importantly, it means I can finally do something meaningful with my life, beyond just surviving." Keisha leaned forward, her eyes wide with the enormity of it all. "Grandma, what are you thinking about doing?" "First, I'm going to take care of my health properly. Private doctors, the best cardiac care available. No more waiting in line at the community clinic for hours just to see a nurse practitioner who's overworked and rushing through appointments." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood that had been my home for so long. The streetlights were flickering on, illuminating the cracked sidewalks and modest houses where hardworking families struggled every day, just like I had for decades. But the real question is what to do with the rest. Your mother, your uncles, they think I'm too stupid to make good decisions because I only finished 8th grade. Let me tell you something about that education, baby girl. I turned back to face my granddaughter, feeling the weight of decades of struggle and the strength that came from surviving it all. I was pulled out of school in rural Alabama when I was 14 because my family needed me to work in the cotton fields. My mama was sick with tuberculosis. My daddy was trying to support 6 kids on a sharecropper's wages, and they needed every hand they could get. The choice was simple: help the family survive or watch them starve. Keisha's eyes filled with tears. Grandma, I never knew the details. I never talked about it much because I didn't want y'all to see it as an excuse or feel sorry for me. But I need you to understand what that experience taught me. I sat back down, remembering those brutal days in the Alabama sun. I learned more about mathematics picking cotton than most people learn in high school algebra. You have to calculate pounds per row, estimate daily earnings, figure out how to stretch meager wages across a week. You learn real economics when your family's survival depends on your calculations. When I came north to Detroit in 1975, I had nothing but a cardboard suitcase held together with rope and determination. I was 19 years old, pregnant with your Uncle Marcus, and the father had disappeared the moment he heard about the baby. I didn't know a soul in this city. I walked over to my old photo album and pulled out a faded picture of myself at 20, standing in front of the Ford plant where I'd gotten my first real job. I worked the night shift at Ford, assembling parts on the line while your uncle slept. In the factory daycare. During the day, I cleaned office buildings downtown, taking Marcus with me in a stroller, letting him nap under desks while I vacuumed and emptied trash cans. By the time Patricia and Jerome came along, I was working 3 jobs: factory work, cleaning, and taking care of Mrs. Patterson's children on weekends. Mrs. Patterson was a wealthy white woman in Grosse Pointe who paid me cash under the table to watch her kids while she played tennis at the country club. Keisha was crying now, understanding for the first time the magnitude of what I'd endured to give her parents opportunities. My education might not have come from textbooks, but it came from life. And life taught me how to recognize people's true character, how to stretch a dollar until it screamed, how to negotiate with landlords and creditors, how to manage a household budget that would make a CPA weep. I pulled out my old checkbook register, pages yellowed with age, every entry carefully recorded in my precise handwriting. Look at this, baby. 25 years of financial records, every penny accounted for. I never bounced a check, never missed a payment, never defaulted on a loan. Banks started offering me credit not because of my education level, but because of my track record. What your parents don't understand is that I've been watching them my whole life, studying them, like a scientist studies specimens. I know Marcus graduated from University of Michigan with honors, but I also know he's been living above his means for years, financing his lifestyle with credit cards and taking risks with his clients' money that would horrify them if they knew. I know Patricia went to Wayne State Law School and passed the bar on her first try, but I also know she's been padding her billable hours and overcharging clients for services that junior associates could handle. I know because Mrs. Rodriguez from Haven House tried to hire her firm for a custody case, and Patricia quoted her triple what the work was actually worth. Keisha looked shocked. Grandma, how do you know all this? Baby, you think I just sit in this house watching television all day? I have friends throughout this city, people who've known me for decades. When you've lived somewhere as long as I have, worked as many jobs as I have, helped as many people as I have, you develop a network. People tell me things. I walked over to my kitchen drawer and pulled out a folder I'd been keeping for years. Mrs. Johnson from the church works as a paralegal at Patricia's firm. She's told me stories about your mother's billing practices that would curl your hair. Mr. Williams from down the street works maintenance at Marcus's investment company. He's heard conversations about risk strategies that would terrify the clients, whose retirement funds Marcus is gambling with. And Jerome, sweet passive Jerome who lets everyone else make his decisions? He's been skimming money from the hospital's charity fund to pay for his family's vacations. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger an audit, but theft nonetheless. I spread the documents across my kitchen table: pay stubs, bank statements, letters, photographs. A lifetime of careful record-keeping by someone who understood that poor people couldn't afford to be careless with documentation. This is what 40 years of paying attention looks like, Keisha. This is what happens when someone without formal education develops their own system of intelligence gathering and analysis. But you, baby girl, you've shown me something completely different. When I was in pain last night, you didn't hesitate to help. You didn't calculate the cost or consider the inconvenience. You saw someone you loved in distress, and you acted with both professional competence and personal compassion. I reached into my purse again and pulled out the document Mrs. Chen had prepared that afternoon, along with several other papers I'd been working on. This is a new will, Keisha, but it's more than that. It's a comprehensive plan for using this money to create lasting change. I'm leaving everything to you, the full $50 million after taxes, because you're the only one who's shown me that you understand what wealth is really for. Keisha's mouth fell open. Grandma, I can't accept this. That's too much. That's not fair to them. They're your children. Fair? I laughed, and this time it was a rich, full sound filled with decades of wisdom. Child, I've spent 40 years being fair to them. I worked myself nearly to death to give them opportunities I never had. I sacrificed my own dreams, my own education, my own health, my own chance at remarriage and personal happiness to make sure they could succeed. I sat down across from her, taking her hands in mine, hands that were weathered from decades of manual labor, but still strong, still capable. I turned down 3 marriage proposals over the years because I didn't want to risk bringing a stepfather into their lives who might not treat them well. I gave up a chance to get my GED because the night classes conflicted with my cleaning job and I needed that income. I postponed medical care for myself countless times to pay for their school supplies, their clothes, their activities. And last night, when I needed them most, when I was experiencing what could have been a fatal heart attack, they couldn't be bothered to care. Patricia kept eating her dinner. Marcus kept checking his phone. Jerome kept planning his vacation. But you, sweet girl, you saved my life. I pulled out another document. But you need to understand, this inheritance comes with responsibilities. This money isn't just about securing your future, though that's important. It's about justice, about proving that wisdom doesn't require a diploma, about showing the world what someone with an 8th grade education can accomplish when given the resources. Marcus, I need to tell you something important. Saturday morning, I won the Powerball lottery, $50 million. The silence on the phone was so complete I thought we'd been disconnected. I could practically hear his mind trying to process this information, recalibrating everything he thought he knew about his poor, uneducated mother. "Mama," he finally said, his voice uncertain and shaky. "What did you just say?" I said, "I won $50 million in the lottery. I have the ticket right here, verified by the Lottery Commission and my lawyer. Mrs. Chen from the Legal Aid Clinic confirmed it this morning, and we've already begun the claiming process." Another long pause, and I could imagine him pacing in, his expensive downtown loft, running his hands through his hair the way he'd done since childhood when he was overwhelmed. "Mama, are you absolutely sure? I mean, sometimes people think they've won when they haven't actually checked the numbers correctly, or they've misread the drawing date, or..." "Marcus, I'm not senile and I'm not confused. I bought the ticket at Johnson's Corner Store using the same numbers I've played for 15 years, your birth dates, your children's birth dates, and the address of this house. I won $50 million. Mrs. Chen had it verified by 2 separate lottery officials." I could practically hear his mind racing, recalculating everything he thought he knew about my situation, my future, my value as a family member. That's absolutely incredible, Mama. This changes everything. This is life-changing money. We need to sit down as a family immediately and discuss how to handle this responsibly. This kind of money requires serious financial planning, tax strategies, investment portfolios. I can take extended time off work, help you navigate the complex tax implications, set up proper wealth management strategies. That won't be necessary, son. Of course it's necessary. Mama, with all due respect, you don't understand the complexities of managing this kind of wealth. There are tax shelters to consider, estate planning implications, investment diversification strategies. You need professional guidance from people who understand high net worth financial management. You need family support from people who have your best interests at heart. The transformation in his voice was remarkable, from barely disguised condescension to eager helpfulness in a matter of seconds. What I need, I interrupted firmly, is for my children to care about me, whether I have $50 or $50 million. Mama, of course we care about you. We've always cared about you. We love you more than anything. Is that why none of you bothered to check on me after I left the dinner table in pain last night? Is that why it took a medical emergency for you to suddenly be interested in my welfare? Is that why you've spent years talking about putting me in assisted living because you assumed I was too poor and too stupid to take care of myself? That's not fair, Mama. We were concerned about your health. We just didn't want to overreact. Patricia said you sometimes exaggerate symptoms, and we thought, Patricia said I exaggerate symptoms? The woman who didn't even look up from her dinner when I said I was having chest pain? The woman who told Keisha not to call an ambulance because it would be too expensive? I stood up and walked to my front window, looking out at the neighborhood these children wanted to remove me from. The place where I'd built a life, where people knew my name and my story, where I'd earned respect through decades of hard work and community involvement. In fact, Marcus, I've already made decisions about this money. Mrs. Chen drew up a new will today with proper legal documentation and psychiatric evaluation to confirm my mental competency. I'm leaving everything to Keisha. The explosion of outrage was immediate and predictable. You can't be serious. Mama, you're not thinking clearly. This is exactly what I was talking about. You're not equipped to make these kinds of major financial decisions alone. Keisha is 23 years old. She doesn't know anything about managing this level of wealth. She could lose it all through poor decisions. She knows how to recognize a medical emergency. She knows how to put someone else's needs before her own comfort. She knows how to treat people with respect and dignity, regardless of their education, level, or social status. Those are the qualities that matter when it comes to handling wealth responsibly. Mama, please don't make any permanent decisions while you're emotional and dealing with health issues. Let's get together as a family tomorrow and discuss this rationally with proper financial advisors present. We can explore all the options. Consider tax implications, discuss charitable giving strategies. The decision is already made, Marcus. The will is signed, notarized, and filed with my attorney. Then we'll contest it. Mama, you're clearly not mentally competent to make these decisions. Your recent health problems, your age, your limited education will have you declared mentally incompetent due to your medical condition and have the will overturned. No court would uphold this kind of reckless decision-making. And there it was, the final proof of who my children really were. Not just greedy, but willing to destroy their mother's dignity and legal rights to get money they felt entitled to. Good luck with that, son. Mrs. Chen had me evaluated by Dr. Sarah Williams, a board-certified psychiatrist, this afternoon as a precaution. Dr. Williams found me to be completely mentally competent, with excellent judgment, clear reasoning abilities, and full understanding of the implications of my decisions. The evaluation is part of the legal record. I hung up the phone and looked at Keisha, who was staring at me with a mixture of admiration and shock. Grandma, he actually threatened to, "Have you declared mentally incompetent over money?" Yes, he did. And that tells me everything I need to know about his character and his priorities. Within an hour, all three of my children were pounding on my door, their faces flushed with anger, desperation, and barely contained greed. But I was ready for them. A year later, the Dorothy Washington Education Fund had awarded its first 50 scholarships to deserving students from our neighborhood. The community center renovation was complete and serving hundreds of families weekly. 10 families had moved into beautifully renovated homes with rent-to-own programs. Keisha had completed her first year of graduate school with honors and was working part-time at the community health center I'd funded. My children? They're still consulting lawyers about contesting the will, still trying to prove their 8th grade educated mother was too stupid to make good decisions with her own money. But I sleep peacefully every night in my same modest house, knowing I made the best decision of my life. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more incredible tales of justice and redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments below.